Yeah, I feel like we continue to get pushed further and further down with all the cool things going on around this community right now. What a weekend at Bluebell this past weekend. And, it's not often that you can bring in football recruits into a baseball environment and have them blown away by the environment. And so congratulations to Coach Schloss and everything that they did. Coach Ford has the softball team playing extremely well. Coach Henry has our men's and women's track team ranked number 1 and number 2 in the country. We got men's and women's tennis going out to the SEC championships this week. And so, I don't know why you guys are in here with me. There's a lot of cool things going on in this campus right now that are, setting a really, really high bar for where this program needs to be. From our perspective, obviously just came up with our second scrimmage. I think we made tremendous strides from scrimmage 1 to scrimmage 2, which, I think, we'd be pretty poor coaches if we didn't. But, it was nice to see us go out and kind of operate and execute on offense in particular a lot better. I thought the overall timing of what we were trying to get done looked significantly better yesterday, much less pre-snap penalties, pre-snap alignment problems. I just thought we looked like a much cleaner operation. Again, we're able to go out there and get about 120 snaps, which was great. Got a lot of kids, a lot of different work, still mixing and matching quite a bit, in the areas and position groups that you guys are most curious of, right? Still mixing around a bunch of offensive linemen to try to figure out what the best group looks like there. Still kind of mixing and matching a lot in the secondary to try to figure out what that looks like. Trying to figure out, the best way to utilize our wide receiver group and where to put those guys. But, I think we took some big steps forward yesterday, and so that was good to see. And now obviously kind of get them healed up and ready to roll and excited for Saturday and the maroon and white game. And, hopefully we get a good turnout and a good crowd. Hopefully the weather holds up enough that we can find a window to play this thing and go out and get one more great opportunity to play good football this spring before we head into the summer. And so kind of from there, I'll open it up to questions.
Starting back behind the lights, Ben, on the right.
Hey, Coach, I was going to ask about it a little bit later, but you were just talking about it. What does it do for the athletes on campus, a team, to see so much success across the athletic department, not just for the athletes in your program, but recruiting events? Like every time people see A&M, in the spotlight, there's kind of this expectation of excellence across the board.
Yeah, I think success breeds success, right, in everything that you do and everything you look at. And so, you when you see other programs, other teams doing it at an elite level, doing it at the pinnacle of their sport, I think that only builds optimism around this university, this community, and these athletics programs. And so, it can only help when all of your programs are having success. Right? There's nothing negative about every athletic program at Texas A&M being very successful.
And I know you guys announced captains earlier this week. I want to ask you specifically about Torian. I know he's got physical ability as well, but how much of, and a leader, and how nice it is as a coach to have a guy like him? I know you've talked about it before, but there's only so many snaps to go around for people on the team, only so much playing time, but anyone can kind of carry themselves and go through their process like Torian does and elevate themselves to the best of their ability like he has. How nice is it to have kind of that role leader?
Yeah, I think, first of all, the captain's vote, so that is 100% the players. Our players select, and kind of based on their amount of years here in the program, they get X amount of votes to kind of cast however they want to cast them. And, it's one of the things, again, that when I became a head coach, like that thing to me is very sacred. And so, we allow them to have 100% control over it. And, the amount of votes that he got, ranging through different classes, different position groups, different people from different areas of the country, you don't often see that, right? A lot of times that stuff becomes, a lot of the offensive linemen tend to vote for the offensive lineman they view as their leader, and the linebackers vote, right? But when you see one kid get votes from, a wide receiver from Florida and offensive lineman from Washington, and it really strikes you that he commands the respect of the locker room, and so that part of it for him is phenomenal. And then I think the other thing it is as we continue to talk about what we need to do to elevate this program, he's a tremendous example of maximizing who he is, right? And in order for our program to be what we want it to be, we have to maximize what we're capable of. And we talked a lot about that through the offseason at the press conference and all of those things. And, here's a kid who has done that, right? He's not 6'3", 230, 5-star, right? He's an extremely talented NFL football player who has made himself everything he can be, right? His process is phenomenal. His understanding of the game is phenomenal. How he goes about playing it. He's a playmaker. He's a difference maker. He impacts the game. But he does all of that because he's maximized everything that he's capable of. And, you want as many of those kids in your program as you possibly can because that's where success comes from.
Down front, Brent, and then to the left, Luke.
You mentioned mixing and matching. That's going to be part of your everyday job description moving forward. How do you go about, in this day and age, of building a culture when guys, come in and the next thing you know, they're leaving, and there's turnover and things like that? How do you go about building that culture when you're constantly mixing and matching with the roster?
Yeah, I just think people have to look at it differently because those things have been going on forever, right? The Houston Chronicle has had employees coming in and out forever, but there's still a culture behind the organization, right? And I think that's where leadership has to set the standard from me through our coaches, through our players, so that when new people come in, they know what they're getting into. I just think it's not as hard as you think about it as long as you just kind of redirect your vision of what college football is, right? It's just not the same. And so, okay, now let's move forward and let's figure out how do we create a culture that sustains a little bit more volatility, a little bit more in and out, right? And you do that by creating very clear standards, very clear expectations, enforcing that throughout your program. And then I think what it does too is I do think at the end of the day it limits, kids believe and buy into what you're doing, it will limit the amount of transition for sure.
Do you think your kind of status as still a relatively new head coach could be an advantage, be helpful in the sense that you don't have this good old days-itis as a coach the way it used to be because you're still a pretty new head coach?
Yeah, sure. And then I think just adaptability is critical to leadership, right? The best leaders adapt to their circumstances and adapt to changing environments, and that's what allows them to have success, right? And you can look across the country and see new coaches having success, but you also see some guys who have been through this in a lot of different eras who are adaptable and adjustable and have figured out ways to kind of shape their programs and their organizations around what is a changing landscape in college athletics. And I just think that's it's not something we shy away from or complain about. It's something we embrace and we've got to move forward with.
Third row on the left, Tyler, or Luke, I'm sorry.
Coach, when you had the spring game and these inter-squad scrimmages, how do you define success between the team?
So, I guess it just depends on your point of view. When you're the head coach, I don't know that there's ever been a successful play, because every TFL is a lost yardage play for your offense and every touchdown is a bad play for your defense. And so when you sit in my chair, you watch 122 bad plays every time you have a scrimmage. But, I think what we talk about is this. We're trying to figure out how to play consistent championship level football, right? And that's not about results. That's about how we operate, how we play from a physicality standpoint, from an effort and demeanor standpoint. How are we executing what we're being asked to do? You can judge and evaluate that stuff in the role of being a head coach for being a coach for 24 years. You start to kind of feel those types of things and care more about those types of things than the actual result of the play, because sometimes, the result of the play is a new blitz that the protection hadn't really got enough work at, or a new route that the coverage maybe hadn't talked enough about, right? And so there's a lot of learning through some of those successes and failures that maybe won't impact the fall, but the demeanor, the temperament, how you go about your day-to-day operation, how hard you play, the operational tempo that you're moving around with on the field. Like, you want to feel that continue to develop and grow every time you go out there, because that's sustainable, right? And that will stand the test of time.
And kind of in those traits and characteristics that you just mentioned, how have you seen the team grow in those since spring ball started last month to now?
Yeah, better every day for sure. And I don't know, where are we now, AC? Probably about 118 days away from where it needs to be for us to play the opener. So, but no, I mean, I don't mean to be like deflective of these comments, but this is we said this last time, and it's true. It's very much a work in progress to get this where we want to go, and that's everyone takes that as negative. You want me to stand up here and say, "Oh my God, it's amazing," but that's not my personality. Like, you're not going to hear that from me ever. So it's just where we are.
Second row on the right, Olin, and then to the back, Darrell.
And Mike, I got a few things if you don't mind.
Yeah.
First of all, since you brought it up about, and I know there's only so much you can say, but what was the reaction to taking recruits to the baseball game?
Yeah, I think it's just that environment, like when it's going on an SEC weekend, especially like it was last weekend. I think we set an attendance record. Yeah, it's just it is. It's a spirit. It's a showcase of what Aggie Land spirit looks like, right? And you say, okay, hey, take this, feel this environment, and now multiply it by 12-fold, and that's Kyle Field on Saturdays, right? And I just think the way Aggies rally around our programs is very impressive, and that shows up in a lot of different ways.
And the recruits who you can't name were impressed by that.
Yeah,
Okay.
certainly more impressed than like had they showed up and we got beat by 6 runs a game and there was 12 people there. We're going to get on the same page, all of me and you.
Any reaction to or any thoughts on the fact that two guys that were named captains, one of them's a sophomore and one of them's in his third year? Typically it seems like, I mean, I don't know if this is the case, but it seems like typically your captains are older guys.
Yeah, I think maybe that's where, again, I don't know everybody's process. I just know mine. When you're new and everything's new and you truly make it player-led, I think it comes out a lot of different ways. Okay. I think it's when it's there was an old school mentality a little bit of like, okay, we're going to name the 2 best senior leader captains, or coaches are going to kind of guess through who. Yeah, when you truly let the players do it, they speak loudly. And so I think when you let them truly speak, you kind of see a lot of different things. And so.
And then I wanted to, last thing to ask you about, one of the bright spots the last couple of years was, return games with Anais on the punts, and then a couple of years before that, A-Chain on kickoffs. And, not necessarily knowing if you have that luxury anymore, but have you seen some guys in those roles this spring that you thought, hey, man, this guy could keep us pretty good there?
Yeah, I think, it's a shame because I think Jabri Barber was the guy that was really stepping into that punt return role, and he did that at Troy and was really good at. And I thought he was going to be a weapon for us back there. And, we'll kind of see the return time on him and what that looks like. I think Cyrus Allen has some ability to get back there and be a punt returner. Moose Muhammad has obviously done that at times in the past, and so we'll see if he can continue to get a little bit more consistent back there. I think Ruben Owens has some skill sets in the kickoff return game. I know he did that a little bit last year, and then we'll see. I think we have some young guys too that maybe could step into some of those roles in the fall and see what that looks like.
Coach, go back behind the lights, Darrell in the middle.
Coach, I'm not going to let Olin outdo me. I got a couple of things, too.
Okay.
First off, what defines a successful spring game to Mike Elko?
Oh, man. That Texas A&M wins. No.
I hope they don't get beat.
Me too. That would be a bad start. No, I think I really don't think in these terms. So I'm just trying to like I'll be happy if we walk off the field and people can walk out of that stadium saying, I'm proud of what that looked like. The kids played hard. They ran around. They showed a lot of commitment to playing Texas A&M football the right way. It was clean. The operation looked clean. They looked like a well-coached team. And they went out there and put some enthusiasm into the fan base for what it's going to look like moving forward in the fall. I think that's probably what would define it for me.
Now I'm going to kind of switch gears a little bit academically. you're a football coach, you're also a dad. What are some of the things, I mean, incoming freshmen have got to, most of them have pretty solid academic backgrounds, but what is something that you've noticed, not just your players, but even with your kids, they have the biggest trouble adapting to in college?
Yeah, I think it's how you manage your time. I think the hardest thing about adjusting to college life is you have more free time than you've ever had in your life, and you have more time where you're operating however you want than you have at any other time in your life. And not every 17, 18-year-old is ready for that. And we've always joked about this through our time in the years of coaching is, you never know which kid is going to have a hard time adjusting to that. And so trying to build some nets up around every single kid that comes into your program and try to guide him through that initial transition, just until he proves that he's got his feet underneath him and he can handle those things, I think is really important because, regardless of academic background, it really turns into that, right? What choices do they make when they're on their own, and what are they doing with their time, and are they managing it the right way?
And I think it's been about 30 years since you were a high school senior, but what was the biggest transition you had to make coming out of South Brunswick Township High School before you went to Penn?
Yeah, probably the same. I just think, I was a three-sport kid in high school, and so, you get into such a regimented routine of you go to school, that's structured, you're there all day, you go to practice, you come home, you don't have much time, so you just get right to your schoolwork, and then it's over. And the next thing you know, it's a Wednesday, and you have 1 hour of class, and that's it, and, practice isn't until 3 o'clock, and what do you do? Like, how do you manage that time, and how do you take advantage of all the opportunities? And, there were times I was good at it, and there were times I struggled with it, to be honest.
Right side Carter, and then to the left Cease.
Mike, we've seen some spring games where coaches really care about it being a watchable product and, getting a lot out of it. We've seen other Ole Miss last weekend. There's hot dog eating contests. There's tug of war on the field. How do you kind of balance making a watchable product, not giving away trade secrets, and where do you kind of see the future of spring games going?
Yeah, I don't know where I see the future going. I think for us, I think our kids deserve an opportunity at the end of spring to go out and play a game. I think it is really hard to say we're going to go 14 practices and then end with another inter-squad scrimmage or end with another thing that resembles, so for us, we want to do the best we can to make it game-like. And so, we held a draft the other night. We let the two captains draft everything, all the way down to play callers, coaching staffs, what sideline they're on, what uniforms they wear. We want it to be truly something that they enjoy. And then I think, listen, you can watch a lot of film of a Mike Elko and or Jay Bateman defense. You can watch a lot of film of a Colin Klein offense. I think anything that is in that scope is fair game to put on film because, someone's going to see it. If there's some things that we've concocted this offseason that we like or wrinkles that we've added, you probably aren't going to put them on national TV Saturday. But I think there's plenty of volume to choose from that all of us have utilized over the years in our schemes. And I think that gives the kids enough freedom to go out and play and showcase themselves.
And then I know you mentioned Barber, but how healthy is the team coming out of the last scrimmage and going into this spring game? And do you guys feel pretty comfortable you can go too deep at most positions? I know with two teams it makes it kind of difficult.
Yeah, no, I mean, certainly not too deep on each team. I think we've got, we're going to be able to put out a pretty good product of who's out there playing the majority of the snaps. And there's certainly a ton of guys that'll get some opportunities to go out and showcase themselves. I think, 14 practices in, you've got some guys nursing some things and not necessarily actually from the scrimmage, but from some of our different practices, and some things have popped up. And, there'll probably be more guys out than you would ever want, but I think that's usually the case. I think for the most part, I think our overall practice has been significantly better than maybe what I had hoped going in. I think we've been healthier than I would have hoped for. We've had more competition out there than maybe have had in the past in spring ball because of the attrition that happens in the winter and some of the different things that have hurt the rosters. And so I think from that standpoint, we've been able to get a lot of really, really good quality reps out there.
Over to the left, Cease, and then Travis and Mark, you wrap us up.
What about your thoughts about bringing Bonfire back to campus?
Oh, over my pay grade.
Front right, Travis.
You're going to learn this quick. You're never going to trap me on one of those questions. No, that's obviously that touches on a lot of different nerves and subjects, and there's a lot of different feelings and emotions in and around that thing. And so I'll let the people who make those decisions make that decision.
All right, Travis.
On a bigger picture thing, I know there's a lot of conversation on the higher levels of the future of kickoffs and what that looks like. Do you have any thoughts on that or how that should look in the college game?
No, I mean, I think we're at a decent spot. I think one of the things you don't ever want to do is react just because other leagues are reacting. I think the ultimate goal is you're trying to get a certain percentage of your kickoffs return so it still becomes a viable play, which I think we're at because we're not where the NFL is where, every single one is boom 9 yards deep in the end zone. And then I think there are some parts of our kickoff game that, I don't know that I would like to see go away. The surprise onside kick, the pooch kick, there's some different elements of strategy that go into the kickoff that, you eliminate when you kind of get into some of these alternate versions of it. And so I think until it becomes a serious issue where it's no longer a truly viable play in college football, I'd like to probably see it stay the same.
Finish up with Mark on the left.
Mike, when you first got here, you talked a lot about the chaos that was going on with coming in, taking over a new team, transfer portal, all that stuff. Now you're getting to the end of spring practice and the portal's open again. Is the chaos more controlled? And how do you balance going from practice to portal to anything else that you may have to deal with in there?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we're in a much better place today to handle it than we were. We kind of stepped right into the hurricane. I think, we've had the last 4 months to prepare for this hurricane. And so I think we're a lot more prepared for it right now than we were then. I do think in some ways the spring portal is slightly less chaotic than the winter one is, especially for us in the SEC. I think, the lack of SEC to SEC mobility creates a little bit more stability on our end, for lack of a better word. But I think it's you have to prepare yourself for these things, and you just got to be able to balance things. It's just the way it works. There's so many different times now over our calendar where you're trying to do a lot of different things, right? We've got to finish spring ball. We've got a spring game. We've got the portal open. We've got incomings. We've got outgoings. We also have junior recruiting that's starting. We've got to manage that. Then you get into June and you got, practices with the players, and you've got camps with kids, and you've got camps with high school prospects, and you've got official visits, and you got, there's just different time windows where now they just kind of dump everything into them. And so I just think that's probably why the football organizations have grown so large is, you need support staff to be able to manage and handle those things. We've got a team that's working on the logistics of where our coaches need to go. That helps so that now our coaches can focus on spring ball. We've got a scouting staff evaluating the in and outs of the portal, right, which allows our coaches to not have to go through all of the minutia and can kind of streamline that process. And so I think how you run a functioning organization is critical with all the things that are going on now.
Coach, thanks for your time.
Yep, thank you guys.